Simon, on this podcast, we do like to talk about things that are like far less detail, but just other things we've been watching that are worthy of discussion. It's a segment we call "What else have you been watching?" The question that everybody's asking Simon is, "What else have you been watching?" Question mark.
Well, question mark. Yeah, you got to put your punctuation in there. For me this week, and I'm going to focus on films, I had the joyous experience of catching two 14-hour plane flights this week. So for me, in-flight entertainment became a crucial part of my movie-going experience. I
Okay,
used the
question.
in-flight entertainment. Yes.
Question. Okay, so did you use the in-flight entertainment or did you preload?
No, I use the in-flight entertainment. I'm a bit old school in that way. I like to watch my movies on a very small screen, about 40 centimeters from my face, when the rest of the
Follow-up
room is
question.
dark. And yes,
Which airline did you fly? And what is their
Qantas,
infl?
Qantas
Okay,
there,
Qantas. And do they have
Qantas there and
screens in
back.
the back of chairs, or is it something where you've got to bring your own device?
No, no, they have screens in the back of the chairs with a quite a good quality visual representation of your chosen content. So that was good. That was really good. And I did watch a mixture. I usually use this time to catch up on stuff that I didn't give a shit about at the movies. In that regard, the one movie I watched this year on the flight over was Migration, the animated film, which I was
Mm.
surprised to see was written by White Lotus's Mike White. I say surprising because it's an animated film with next to no story in it. It's about about a bunch of ducks who want to fly to the Caribbean and get stuck in New York, and then there's a whole lot of noisy and very colourful, beautiful animation, but so lean on story. I can't believe what they got away with. Um, the films I do want to mention very quickly that I fell in love with, there was a movie called The Book of Clarence. This is a
Okay.
biblical allegory, which I had heard of but didn't think it came to Australia at all. It may be on one of the streamers, I just haven't come across it yet. But Lakeith Stanfield plays this sort of Christ type figure who finds him, and it's all done from an African American perspective. And it was such an exciting and enjoyable, and he gave such a great performance in this. I do sort of take with a grain of salt how much I love movies on planes sometimes, because I'm sure there's something about the air conditioning or the small plate of food they put in front of you in the middle of the film that maybe makes you love movies more than you should. I remember bawling my eyes out watching Pleasantville on a flight back from New Zealand once, and then I watched it again. I thought, what was I crying about in this film? But I love The Book of Clarence. It's a terrific film. The other one I watched, and it's in cinemas this week here in Australia, is a I want to say an animated film, but it's more that rotoscope thing like our mate Linklater did with Waking Life. It's called The Peasants. It's the story of a young woman in a Polish village who is targeted for her perceived loose morals, when in fact she's just being taken down by some of the more jealous women and the patriarchal brutes of the town. It's a tough watch, and had some scenes in it where I was sort of went, oh, I hope no one around me is watching my screen at the moment. But it's beautiful to look at. It's all done like a watercolor, and it's called The Peasants, and it has hit cinemas this week here in Australia. Problemista is a film directed by Julio Torres. Julio Torres is sort of an up-and-coming young comic and talent in America at the moment. His new TV series, Phantasmas, starts on our local channels, and I think is on Max in the US as we speak. It's a very weird, very strange sort of version of a young Latin American man who's come to LA to make a name for himself and gets caught up with Tilda Swinton. And the other thing I watched, because I haven't seen it since 1999, and it was because we had 100 minutes left on our flight and it went for 82 minutes, was the Blair Witch Project, which I
Ah,
have to say, being a found footage fan, I can see why this film is now considered. I'd only ever seen it once before when it came to the movies, and I wanted to rewatch it again. All the found footage films that have come in its wake have tried to be ultra realistic in a way that the Blair Witch Project seemed to achieve almost effortlessly. This is such a cleverly made film, and I can see why it's considered such a groundbreaking genre piece, because it has been so influential. And there was found footage stuff before Blair Witch Project, but there was none quite like it. And I can honestly, having rewatched it, 25 years later, there have been none like it since. So huge props for the Blair Witch Project, which absolutely still terrified me, even though I was at the end of 28 hours on a plane.
I mean, maybe that's why it terrified you a little bit more.
because I didn't know where I was or who all these people were around me.
Wait, 28 hours on a plane? What flight were you
Well,
catching?
when no. There was 14 hours going over and 14 hours coming back, so I lumped it all together. And it's called maths.
Okay, sure.
Dan, what else
Uh,
have you been watching?
Look, good question. So I did watch the French shark movie called Under Paris.
Ah,
Uh,
interesting.
Look, this one, I knew it was out. I just dismissed it entirely because I figured, shark movie,
Love it.
they're never any good. Like, has there ever been one good shark movie? No,
Well, you said
that's
that about
silly.
Bigfoot movies last week, and
No, there is
as a wave of
legitimately.
support.
Okay, look, Simon, obviously that's a joke because there's one movie that's very good and everyone universally agrees it's a very good movie. But also, I think everyone universally agrees that most of the other shark movies are all just pretty dumb. When The Meg is probably one of the better additions to the genre, like that's kind of really sad pickings.
Deep Blue
But look,
Sea, my friend.
yeah, look, there was this really good review for the film in Variety, which really just
Yes,
sort
there was.
of knocked me over. And I'm like, wait a second, is this actually worth checking out? Then I saw a second comment saying, oh, that review in Variety, like absolutely on the money, check this movie out. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend my Friday night watching this and not Hitman, which was a big mistake because I think Hitman may actually be quite good from the few minutes I've seen of it. Under Paris, I know you were fairly fond of it. I saw your letterbox review of it last night, Simon. But everything that this variety review said, which was that the strength of this movie versus other movies is that they are a lot more restrained in seeing the shark. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? These sharks are, there's more than one shark. They are very
Yeah.
prominent through this entire movie. They are not hidden in any possible way. And that is to the
No.
detriment of this movie because what could have been a really fun bit of silly fluff ends up just being unwatchable with all these CG sharks just constantly swimming around. Like none of
All
like I
right.
complained last week about Furiosa. Sorry, I didn't actually complain. I think that you forced me into complaining about it. But as we got through that Stockholm syndrome, and I, identified with my captor, which is you in this case, my problem with Furiosa was that it was all just CG, and I couldn't really latch into anything. And that's the same thing with this movie. Like these sharks don't really seem to quite move with the same reality of a normal shark, and I just couldn't really
Well,
buy into it in the slightest. And
let me.
it just turned out unwatchable. But I will say, recommend watching it for two very big set pieces. One takes place in the catacombs of France, which anything set in
Awesome.
catacombs, I'm always there for it. And then the second, it's fun that this movie is taking place, and as soon as the politicians in the film are revealed, you know where this film's going to end. Okay, but it's taking place in France in the year that the Olympics are coming to France, and there's an Olympics type event that takes place, and the finale of this movie is genuinely quite fantastic. It's just a shame about the hour and a half that comes before it.
All right. As someone who watches every shark movie that comes out, I can say that the standard of CGI used in this film is of an upper tier compared to some of the other
Yeah, but
shark
come on.
movies that I've watched lately. No, it really is. The star power, having Berenice Bejo as the lead in this, she brings a whole lot more class to this movie than it deserves. The uh, As a shark guy, I spent the first 70 minutes of this film saying to myself, this movie is dodging the fact that most sharks, can't live in fresh water. And then, in a very sci-fi twist, it sort of explains away that. So,
Mm.
which I was saying, oh, I'm so on board for this nonsense. And then by the end of it, when it was revealed that the Seine is actually full of unexploded bombs, spoiler alert, but you'll get to
Oh well, they
is
revealed that at the very beginning, Simon. The opening
I know,
sequence
but I
is kids
just
finding the unexploded bomb.
yeah, and the nods to Jaws, be it in the form of the terrible politician or who really only has the commercial interests of the town at heart, the explosions at the end of the film, so on and so forth. The nods to Jaws are I found to be loving and honourable enough without being too rip-offy. So look, yeah, it's a stupid, stupid film, but it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't know, a lot of fun. Like that seems to really stretch my definitions of a lot of those words. But other things, Simon, that I've watched during the week is I get really frustrated with the lack of that sort of mid-tier movie, particularly movies that are made for adults. And so I've got this
Sure.
theory: if I can find a movie that stars Richard Gere, I know I'm watching a movie for grown-ups. Like, it's just a fact.
10-4,
Yeah.
100%. I'm a completist. I watch anything he's in.
So look, I went back and because I was a young kid at the time, I didn't really internal affairs wasn't necessarily on my radar so much. But I watched that the other day. Pretty good movie. People should probably check that one
Terrific
out.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really stepping out on a
Where
ledge
was that
there, aren't
on?
you, Barrett?
No, you're not exactly. You're not exactly walking the gangplank there.
Yeah.
Where is that on?
No, it was on a
Can
streaming
you remember?
service. I don't even remember where I
One
saw
of
it.
the streams. Okay.
Yeah, it could have been an overseas service. So apologies
Yeah.
for Australians looking for it. And then also I watched another 1990 movie called Ghost, which
Wow.
I was kind of curious about because I was a little bit like I saw it when I was a kid, but I was too young to sort of really get it. Like I was 10 years old. Like it was,
Mm.
I think you probably need to be like 11 years old to understand that movie. And then by the age of 13, you're probably too old for it. But sadly just that smidge too young for it. Look, it was kind of, almost fun to watch, but I don't know that film really holds up particularly that well. And,
Oh wow, gee,
oh, no,
that's from a person.
it's not for political
For a
reasons. I
person.
just think it's a bit of a rubbish film.
Oh wow, for a person of a certain age, that was such a sort of game-changing film that just keep clicking over and over at the box office. It spent like 16 weeks at number one, which is unheard of in this day and age when movies come and go so quickly. But it delivered on Patrick Swayze's leading man promise. Everybody absolutely fell in love with Demi Moore from this film, and it won Whoopi Goldberg an Oscar. So I'm going to go back and check it out because I think it had some. I think it was far and beyond what the material could have been, might have read on paper. Everyone over delivered on that film, as I remember it. But I will go back and have another look.
Yeah, look, I certainly appreciate, and I kind of feel this is the way for a lot of Demi Moore films generally, but there's something very sort of zeitgeisty about the moment of that movie, and I certainly understand how it connected with the culture, but at the same time, like just watching it on its own terms, it just didn't do anything for me. But
She
then
is all
Simon,
set for.
oh,
She is all set very quickly. All set for a maybe a bit of a demi renaissance soon.
I
She
hope
her
not.
her new film, The Substance, is getting some pretty rave reviews, co-starring Margaret Qualley, and it's been announced as the Sydney Film Festival closing night film. It's a kind of a body horror thing, so I'm keen to see how the Chardonnay sippers here in Sydney will take to that as their closing night film. But yeah, I'm keen. I'm all for a Demi Moore comeback. Plus, she was in that feud thing, the Truman Capote thing earlier this year.
That,
So maybe it's
that no
time
one
for a
seemed to
Demi
watch.
comeback. Come on. Is Demi really that sort of zeitgeisty specific? Because I mean, in my time, she was a huge star. She was A Few Good Men. She was GI Jane. She was St. Elmo's Fire. She was one of the biggest stars in the world that then disappeared. Um,
Yeah, I think she was
Fell
just
off
off a
the radar.
cultural moment. Like it just sort of seemed like from
Okay.
Seine Almost Fire, which is a movie that I watched not too long ago that I really did not care for. I didn't think it was very good.
Yeah.
But it's removed from the cultural moment, Simon. And that's the thing with culture.
Your
Like
cultural
sometimes,
movement.
well, yeah, but like the cultural moment of 2024, which is when I watched that movie, the movie doesn't have
Okay.
anything to say. Like it's kind of,
It's got a
like it suddenly just
legacy.
felt like a relic. I can appreciate back in, what was it, like 87? That film came out. Like I totally
For
get
St.
why it
Elmo's.
connected with the culture of the moment, but it just doesn't do that anymore. So, if you don't have that cultural connection, it's a bit hard to necessarily buy into it in the same way. But anyway, Simon, something which I think is probably more worthy of conversation than St.
Yeah.
Elmo's Fire is a film that I watched, which has been on my list of something to watch for many years, and for some reason I've never
Okay.
watched it. And it was such a stonking good time. And look, I don't know
Wow.
if you care for this movie. Look, we're going to find out in a moment. But it was a concert movie called Stop Making Sense.
Yes, I do care for this film, and you're treading on my toes a little bit with my adventures in La La Land, but do
Okay,
go on.
just wait, Simon. I'm just going to talk about this and then we're going to throw to an intermission. It's a
Okay.
segue, Simon. It's a segue.
I love a good
So look,
segue.
I'd never seen Stop Making Sense before. I knew that it was a Jonathan Demme directed movie. I have probably gotten a lot more familiar with the Talking Heads in the last couple of months than I had been in the past. Like I certainly knew a bunch of their songs, but I can't say I'd ever really listened to an album from, track one onwards. But this is a really great documentary. If you haven't actually seen this before, like it is just a film concert. And what's really fun about it, and I know I'm speaking to an audience that probably have seen this a whole bunch of times, Simon Foster, But it's kind of fun watching the very beginning where you see frontman David Byrne come on stage and it's just him. And then track by track, not only are there band members of Talking Heads joining in more or less sort of one by one for the first couple of tracks, but also the stage behind is being assembled. So the audience are watching a very stripped back, very bare stage, and not just sort of naked in that, oh, there's no set dressings, but like you see the bare walls behind, like the sort of, brickwork that gets dressed up usually in that theater. Like you see it really, really heavily stripped back. And then song by song, like the entire show is being put together until by the last couple of songs, you're really seeing things with everybody on stage, the full band, additional sort of musicians on stage, dancers are there. You've got the proper set dressings. You've got, like a really impressive light show happening. You've got David Byrne's oddball performance all the way through that, which completely sells it. There's a great moment with us singing while also running on the spot, which is, hugely enjoyable to watch. Look, really fun documentary. Even if you're not a crazy, like, Mad King Talking Heads fan, I think still one of the important canon films to watch as we're thinking about cinema. That said, Simon, I don't want to hear your thoughts on it. Instead, we're going to throw to the intermission, which is a conversation about the pop culture that you can go and engage in when you go on holidays. But you just took such a holiday on the basis of a Stop Making Sense on stage reunion. But look, let's throw to the intermission and we're going to come back on the other side and talk about this.